I want to take a trip down to the book of Daniel in the Old Testament to share a story that might help us today, to the sixth chapter of Daniel. That's Daniel 6, verses 16 through 21. Daniel 6, that's verses 16, 21. Let me go through 22, but yeah, I do. I go through 22. Daniel 16 through 22. Now listen carefully. If you have it, just look it up and bless us if you can, but just standing for the word of God wherever you are. So at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel answered, "Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me." I want to talk to you a little while. From fearless in a time of fear. Fearless in a time of fear. For the past 3 Sundays, I have opened my sermon saying that these are difficult times in which we live. I would think by now that you know that. But according to the experts, the next 2 weeks are going to be critical because we are now in what's considered the apex of the spread of the virus. The numbers indicate that we will have increased numbers of infected people, fewer ventilators, fewer hospital beds, but more deaths. We are being challenged on every side. The entire world is gripped in fear as we fight the onslaught of this virus. We have to be respectful of the instructions of those who certainly know more than we know as to what we should do. One thing we're doing is we are staying at home. We are staying safe. We are respecting the recommendations of the experts. But we're dealing with fear. We're dealing with fear. Fearless in a time of fear. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that fear defeats more people than any other thing in the world. Sophocles said, "To him who is in fear, everything wrestles." I heard Nelson Mandela say, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And then Isaiah writes in 35:4, "Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you." Today, I hope to give you some courage. We live in a challenging world. We need to learn how to live in a broken world. There's a new normal now that exists. We'll never be the same again. We'll be conscious of bugs and germs and viruses more now in the future than ever before. Daniel offers us some great examples of how we can overcome fear. The Bible says it pleased King Darius to be the master of the world. The Chaldeans had conquered much of the known world at the time of Daniel. The children of Israel now were victims of their second captivity. Daniel understood that all the civil laws are not in compliance with God's laws. He understood clearly that there was a separation between church and state. What he believed and what he knew disagreed with the rulings of King Darius. If we venture back through some of the earlier texts, beginning at verse 6, it says, "Then these high officials and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days except to you, O king, shall be cast into a den of lions. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked." Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. For this Daniel would be sentenced to death in the most horrible of ways, cast into the lion's den to be killed and to be eaten by the lions. Pastor Scott Mays said this is one of the most enduring and well-known stories in all of the Bible and all of literature. Daniel teaches us how to live when you believe in the one true God in a world where morality's compass has been broken. For the next few moments, I want you to see how God gives you courage, and how you can live out your convictions. Like Daniel, we have been placed in a world of worry and fear, a world very different from the one we grew up in a world that is evolving, quickly changing every single day. The world has always been a scary place, whether it's random shootings, crime, dangers, accidents, acts of violence, or threat of a jihad. But nothing has scared us like this virus, this coronavirus. There isn't a follower of Christ who doesn't at times struggle to reconcile what he or she knows about God and the challenges that we all face. Often when our faith and our culture collide, fear seizes us. We don't like change very much. Change scares folks. Change makes people uncomfortable. To be told to stay home is difficult. To be told to lock in, stay safe, shelter at home is tough. To lose your job is tough. To lose your position is tough. To have your schools closed is tough. To have your daycares closed is tough. We're going through a lot of tough stuff right now. But the fact is, we've got to adapt. We've got to adapt quickly to survive. There isn't a follower of Christ who doesn't at any time struggle to reconcile what he knows about God and what they believe in God versus the challenges that we meet. What am I talking about, Adkins? Adkins is talking about, and there are times when the best of saints, the best of Christians will question God. The best of us will say, why God? Why now? The best of us will say, why did you let this happen? The best of us will say, how could this be? The best of us could say, why did you do this or allow this to happen? Fear seizes us. Fear controls us. Fear grabs us. And we know God does not give us that spirit of fear. But the fact remains that fear is a reality that all of us face. God offers us the benefit of protection. He offers us the benefit of his shelter. He offers us the benefit of his peace. Fear can cause us to shrink where our courage has swelled. But the fear we have today regarding the virus surpasses all of the fears because we can't see this thing. It's killing people all over the world. 1,024 died yesterday here in the United States. Where does real courage come from? How do you get courage when you need it? Some are born with personalities and dispositions that exude self-assurance. Yet for most of us, confidence has to be developed over a period of time. But courage is more than feeling good about ourselves. Daniel knew what he knew, and he professed what he knew, and he was defiant in his prayer. Daniel understood clearly what he was doing and the consequences that existed for him doing it. He understood clearly that his faith was not in other men, but his faith was in his God. His integrity would not allow him to capitulate to the rulings of the king. His convictions would not allow him to succumb to fear. Yes, all of us will become fearful at times, discouraged and frustrated. But I remember John Wayne in a movie said, courage is being scared to death, but you keep saddling up anyway. You see, there's something different about Daniel. He had faith. And we ask here at this last point, where did Daniel get his backbone? What was his secret? Daniel's courage wasn't natural. Instead, it was supernatural. Courage is always produced by faith, and faith is God confidence. Faith is God confidence. I didn't say faith in God. I said faith is God confidence. What does that mean? Our faith comes from our confidence that God is who God says he is, that God is able to do what God says he is able to do. Courage is always produced by faith, and faith is God confidence. And Daniel got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks to his God. He had faith in God because he personally knew God was alive. Daniel had confidence from above and gave thanks before his God. And remember, without faith, it is impossible to please him. Daniel's faith was from above. He had faith in God for good reason. God has never lost a battle. He remains undefeated. He's never crashed, and he's never been overloaded with work. We need to have our faith focused like a laser. Here are 3 components you're going to need to increase your faith. First, you have to have a relationship with the Lord to produce courage. If you don't have a relationship with him, you don't know him the way you should know him. Far too many people have borrowed faith. God is your father's God. He's your pastor's God. He's your wife's God. He's your mother's God. But is he your God? Is he your God in the personal knowledge of yourself? You don't get any points by serving your mama's God or your wife's God or your daddy's God. He must be your God as well. What you need, secondly, is your God to be the God that you understand, not in knowing what or why he does what he does, but understand that he is God before all other gods, and all other gods don't exist even in his presence. Therefore, he is God all by himself. He is sovereign unto himself, and you need to know that he has all power because he has created everything in the earth. And as I've said many times, either God causes something or he allows something. Whatever happens, happens at his will. It happens at his will. Either he causes it or he allows it. And then you need to recognize, thirdly, that there's a relationship between the strength of your faith and the personal experience that you have with your God. There's a direct correlation between the fact that if you have faith, you will be strong. Believe me, if you have faith, we will be stronger. Ask any child of God who knows that when they pray, as soon as they finish praying, they're stronger than when they started praying. Strength comes with your knowledge of God and your trust in him. Then I might ask you the question, what size is your God? You need to recognize there's a relationship between the strength of your faith and the size of your God. If you have little faith, then your view of God is just too small. Faith places the glory, the power, and the presence of God on display for all to see. Faith says God will come through. One of the biggest obstacles to possessing lion-hearted righteous boldness is simple. People are too big and God is too small. Fear grows when people are big and God is small. God is bigger than this virus. God is bigger than this pandemic. God is bigger than a plague. God is bigger than disease. God is bigger than cancer. God is bigger than heart ailments. God is bigger than diabetes. God is bigger than all the problems of the world combined. He is bigger than all of that. For the scripture says in Hebrews, for yet a little while, and the coming one will come and will not delay, but my righteous one shall live by faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. The Lord challenges us to be strong in him, to stand firm in him. Even though we may be afraid, he challenges us to overcome that fear. Conversely, faith grows when God is big and people are small. You need to shift your eyes from what threatens you to destroy you to the one who promises to deliver you. We focus on the problem and don't see the solution. The power of faith isn't your faith itself. The power of faith is in the one that you believe. Focus your faith by putting your crosshairs on Christ. Christ is the power that the faith draws its strength from. Faith is sight even when the lights are off. Faith is that strong entity that holds us together like a super sacred glue. A glue that won't let us fall apart, a glue that won't let us have a mental breakdown, a glue that won't let us just fall to pieces. A glue that says, hold on, even though. A glue that says, lean on his everlasting arms. The kind of glue that says, we will stick together and stay together and trust in his word together. And we will hold on and we will not fall apart and fall away. Sleeping with lions has to be a fearful thing. But the Bible says Daniel slept anyhow. And guess what? The lions slept too. David found rest because he found rest in God. J. Oswald Chambers put it this way: peace is not in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of God. Darius could not find peace in the palace because God was not there, but Daniel found peace in the lion's den because God was there. God took care of Daniel because Daniel trusted him. And the same thing can happen to you. You can find rest if you rest in God. You can find peace if you depend on the Lord. You can get rid of all your worries if you commit your life to the Lord and pray every day. Today we all are in a lion's den. This virus is the lion and the earth is his den. But we can still find rest because our God is bigger than the lions. Our faith must be demonstrated and not just stated. We must believe and not just hope. Our trust must be in the same God who shut the lion's jaws. And we'll subdue and remove this virus from amongst us. Our faith must be the kind of faith that says, we'll get up anyhow. We'll go on anyhow. We'll survive anyhow. We'll keep going anyhow. We'll endure anyhow. We'll make it through anyhow. My beloved brothers and sisters, you've got to develop a little attitude. You need a little attitude. Yeah. Forrest Woods wrote the book, The Arrogance of Faith. One of my favorite books, and I would advise you to read it. There has to be an arrogance that goes along with faith. You can't just say you have faith. You got to be kind of cocky with it. You got to be kind of bold with it. Arrogant almost with it. Hard-headed, stubborn. To say that I don't care what nobody else says. I respect the experts. I respect the doctors and the physicians. But I got an arrogance about my faith that tells me they don't know everything they need to know. I got an arrogance about me in my faith that says, I know the CDC and the NIH and all of these people, I know they know what they're doing, but at the same time, I know somebody that's bigger than they are. I know somebody that's smarter than they are. I know somebody that is more powerful than they are. I know somebody. So I'm a little bit arrogant. Yeah, I am. I'm a little bit arrogant. Yeah. Because that's the kind of faith I have. I don't care how much you yell at me or fuss at me, you're not going to run my faith away. I'm going to trust in him. I'm going to believe in him. I'm going to walk with him. I'm going to keep talking to him. I'm going to keep living the life the way I've been living all along because I know my God shall supply all of our needs according to his riches and glory. I know this thing is going to end. It's going to end. Yes, it will. It will. I've got to be just sure of my faith. I can't have faith crossing my fingers, crossing my legs, or not stepping on cracks in the sidewalk. I've got to have the kind of faith that is real. It says, I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when my God shall deliver us. But I just know he will. I just know that he will. That's the courage I want to give you today. Just a touch of arrogance, just a little bit enough of it. I know you think that's a bad word, but just enough of it to say, I'm going to survive this thing. I'm going to get through this thing. I'm going to make it anyhow. And if you have, you can step into a den of lions and know that God will shut their mouths and give them a case of lockjaw. We're all in a den now with lions all around us. It's floating all over this earth. But the God I serve is still so much bigger. God bless your hearts.